Today, we're talking about Fujifilm's new flagship APS-C camera, the Fujifilm X-H2S. All right, so in this review, I'm gonna be focusing on the practical aspects of this camera that matter most to people like me, people who are YouTubers first, photographers second. I'll still list the main technical specifications of this camera for anyone who hasn't seen them yet, but the main focus of this video is going to be my experience with the camera, why I think it's so great, and why it might be a great option for you as well if you're a creator, a photographer, someone who needs a really good hybrid camera. So starting with some quick facts about the Fujifilm X-H2S. So this is Fujifilm's flagship X series camera. Flagship meaning it's the highest end model in Fuji's series of X mirrorless cameras. X series is basically, for those of you who don't know, these are all the cameras Fuji makes that have a cropped sensor. Not full frame, cropped. That's X series. This camera body currently goes for $31.99 here in Canada and about $24.99 I believe down in the United States. It's got a 26.1 megapixel stacked backside illuminated sensor. I told you I'm not super techie, but from what I understand, stacked sensor is really good for speed, high burst rates, good for processing a lot of data fast. It's fast, it's a good thing. It's also an X-Trans sensor, which this one I know from just being a Fuji user, people are always talking about Fuji colors. Apparently that's influenced by the layout of the dots or whatever you would call them on the actual sensor of this camera. So this camera is no exception. It also uses Fuji's patented X-Trans type of sensor. So the camera can shoot 6.2K video at 30p and 40K at 120p. And the cool thing that was one of the reasons I bought this is this can actually shoot 4K video for 240 minutes straight, or basically until the battery dies, which is huge. It can shoot still photos, 40 FPS, 40 frames per second if you just hold down the shutter button, which is insane. It also has a dual card slot, SD card and CF Express Type B, so good for backup, a little bit of redundancy there, but mainly the CF Express B card is to enable some of the higher powered features that require faster memory. I think 6K video is one of them, and also the really high 40 FPS burst rate for stills also requires the faster memory card. So that's pretty much it spec wise. I told you this wasn't going to be a big spec review, which is why I just read them off the page, but the net of all of this is that this is a really expensive, really capable, flagship, top of the line mirrorless camera. It's a good camera. That's the net from a tech specs perspective. So, but now what we're going to talk about is why I care about this camera and why you might care about it too if you're someone who falls into my realm of the world. You're a creator, you're a YouTuber, you're not really a professional photographer, but you care about photography and you need a hybrid camera that can kind of do it all really well for you. So for me, there was really just two main reasons that really pushed me over the edge for the X-H2S. The first was the fact that you could record 4K video pretty much indefinitely using just a battery. You didn't need any third-party gear or anything like that. That was huge. And the improved autofocus was another really big thing for me. And if you're watching this and you notice the camera goes in and out of focus, I'm using an X-T200 to record this. I've had issues with Fuji autofocus in the past, as I know many of you might have as well. So for me, starting with the longer recording or indefinite recording time when it comes to recording 4K, my current camera and a lot of cameras have a recording cap, a time limit on how long you can go recording 4K video before the camera actually overheats and shuts down. Usually about 15 minutes. Super inconvenient for any video project that you want to record in one sitting. It's longer than 15 minutes. Also, if you're recording podcasts or things like that, super inconvenient if your camera can't internally record for that long. You either need to use a cable, connect it to your computer and capture it through your computer, or buy something like one of those Atmos Ninjas, like a external video recorder. It's like $1,000. You attach it to your camera and then you can record using any camera. But that's $1,000 worth a year that you're just needing to buy. I didn't want to do that. So the X-H2S remedied a lot of this because as long as my battery's charged, you just witnessed a little bit of bad autofocus. But anyways, going back to the video, the XH2S remedies this, because as long as my battery is charged, I can go for about 2 hours on a charge recording internally, which is pretty awesome. On the topic of autofocus, I just noticed that this video just randomly went out of focus. I don't know why. The XH2S remedies a lot of the issues people have had with autofocus when it comes to older Fujifilm X series cameras. This camera being an example, sometimes will hunt for focus in the foreground, background, wherever. I've been using the XH2S for about 3 months and have had no issues with autofocus. It's been absolutely incredible. So yeah, those are the reasons I was interested in the XH2S, and honestly, I really loved using Fuji cameras. So despite the bad autofocus and things like that, I wanted to try to get myself into another X series camera. So when I heard that this was announced and it was supposed to remedy those issues with a faster processor and a lot newer, better tech, I was all for it. And I picked it up. No issues, and it's been performing really, really well for me. So from a YouTuber's perspective, those were the two main reasons I upgraded to this camera. When we talk about resolution, honestly, this thing can shoot 6K video, but who's gonna use that? Like, I can't tell the difference between 1080p to 4K, let alone 4K to 6K. It was just one of those things. And you know what? You could even argue that 4K is overkill. You're not going to notice a difference. Some people don't even have the internet bandwidth to stream 4K video. And honestly, what's the difference between 4 and 6? I'm not that into it where I can see the difference. I doubt many people can. But it was one of those things that, you know, on top of all the other reasons I wanted this camera, 6K video, add that to my list of justifications for why I'm going to go out and spend $3 grand on gear, right? So that's pretty much it from the YouTube side of things. Now I'm going to talk really briefly about my experience with this camera as a stills camera for photography. Net is it's been great as a stills camera. I've done about 12 photo shoots so far, and it performs really, really, really well. The thing I'm going to point out though, before I go further on the photography stuff, is I'm just going to put a disclaimer here. I am not a professional photographer. I am not. So just take things with a grain of salt here. But even despite not being a pro photographer, what I can say about this camera as a stills camera, plain and simple, it's great. For those of you who get all caught up on the whole cropped sensor versus full frame sensor, yes, this is a $3,000 cropped sensor body. Yes, you're probably right that you could go out and buy something like a Sony a7 IV full frame for the same price. And yes, despite all that, I still think this is an amazing option. So yeah, like if I want to play devil's advocate here, if we're really getting nitpicky about full frame versus cropped, at least with a cropped camera like this one, a crop sensor camera like this one, your video and photo files are going to be a little bit smaller, easier from a data management perspective. But really and truly, image quality on this thing is fantastic. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're someone who gets all hung up on full frame versus cropped. This is a fantastic camera. So fantastic that I'll say that I've seen and I know you can do things like professional wedding photography with this camera, professional portraits with this camera. Come on, Fuji. So yeah, when we look at this from an image quality perspective, don't care who you are, don't care how much you love full frame, this takes fantastic images. So good that I'll say you could really do things like wedding photography professionally, professional portraits with this camera. Yes, you can. Don't believe me? Go look up John Branch Photography. He's a YouTuber who uses exclusively Fuji X series cameras. There's a ton of other people like him out there, but yeah, he does pro weddings with X-T3 or X-T4 model cameras, and he recently picked up one of these. Can only imagine the amazing images he's going to create. So if you're that person, full frame versus cropped, and you think cropped is some crazy step down, I encourage you to do just a little bit of Googling, check out John Branch. You can make some really killer images, and I think you can pull some great images out of this camera as well. So that aside, the thing I actually enjoy most about this camera when it comes to shooting stills is I could be in the city with my subject walking towards me through the city. The autofocus snaps on really quickly. Combine that with a really high burst rate and you can capture a lot of shots, a lot of action shots of people making little minute movements through the city and not lose focus. It's really, really good at that. I've really loved using it in those settings. And just lastly, the form factor of this thing. I know it's not your classic you know, old school dial Fuji, but the grip is just huge. It's easy to grab onto. It's really easy to use around, out and about. It's just great to handle. That's something that I really wanted to mention as well. So what do I think about the XH2S as a primary camera for someone who's a YouTuber first, photographer second? Well, if it's not already obvious, I think it's fantastic. All these reasons are the reasons why I bought this one for myself, and I'm super happy using it as the primary camera in my YouTube creation workflow. But this wouldn't be a YouTube video if I didn't ask what you guys thought. So let me know in the comment section below if you agree, if you disagree, if you're looking at this camera for yourself. I'll do my best to answer all of your questions as best I can. But yeah, Fujifilm X-H2S, super impressed. Doesn't lose focus like my X-T200 that's recording this video. Great camera, highly recommend for someone who's, you know, making money with YouTube, wants to make money with YouTube, and also loves photography. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Till next time, cheers.